All right, good day to all our viewers and welcome back to this channel. And I also welcome back to the panel as well. Welcome back Tono, welcome back Zahran, and welcome back Hussein. Would you like to introduce yourselves, your name and your country, starting from Tono?
Hello guys, my name is Tano and I'm choosing Brunei Darussalam as my country.
My name is Farhan Muhammad Zahran. I choose Philippines because because uh, because Philippines a part of Latin, something like that. Latinos. I think that's all. That's what parts makes me interesting. Okay, thanks.
All right. Thanks for that, Zahran. Hussein, how about you?
Okay, hello guys. Thanks, Nay. I'm Hussein Al Hinduan, and here I focus on Pakistan country.
All right, thank you for that, Hussein. We would also like to say, forward our apologies to the viewers for Julio's unattendance for today, for this video. It is also because mostly he's busy with other things as well, so his delegacy is not in here right now, and that's completely fine. We can continue without him for now. So we'll just get right away. Oh, and right, I'm sorry. My name is Warne, and I will be the delegate of Indonesia for today's panel. And the reason why I chose Indonesia is I just want to see how our country's been doing in this, pandemic right now. So, welcome back again, everyone who's watching. Welcome back to panelists. I thank you for your attendance today, and we will be getting right into the discussion. We'll be discussing based off the questions that we've come across last week because we feel like that those are the most fitting questions to actually talk about during this discussion today. So we'll start off right away with the first question. Of course, how has your country been affected by COVID-19? You may explain in any aspect you want, whether that be politics, economics, or even social. Tono, would you like to start us off?
All right, thank you, Ning. So how has the country been affected by COVID-19 in Brunei Darussalam? Brunei Darussalam's economy is expected to recover moderately in this year after slower but it's still positive growth as year amid the global economic downside due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Supported by higher oil earnings, the country's successful COVID-19 containment measures have allowed domestic restriction to be lifted and contributed to market improvement and economic activity in this year. The economy growth contributed to a market improvement in economic activity around 1% from last year. And after expanding robust this year by 39%, uh, the slowdown was mainly due to the reduction in output of the oil and gas sector, reflecting the slump in global oil prices and demand, and more shutdowns of oil wells for maintenance. The non-oil and gas sector, meanwhile, grew by 8.8%, largely on the back of a surge in downstream activities, which offset the decline in public administration, transport, finance, and education. On the demand side, major growth drivers for 2020 comprised net export, chiefly from the Eni refinery and private consumption. This overall balance of payments registered a deficit of 3.7% of GDP in last year, reflecting capital outflows in the financial account and a narrow current account surplus. And as a result, gross international of the Brunei Darussalam reserves stand to 4 billion USD dollar or in 7.5 billion in the month of imports of goods and services in December 2020. Even though that there's a down from from the income into 4.3 billion in 2019, the country's fiscal deficit is expected to narrow sharply in this year due to the recovery in oil and gas revenue on the back of a rebound in global oil prices and demand. So that's all that I got from the Brunei Darussalam in the economic.
All right. Thank you for that, Ton. Zahran, would you like to continue the discussion and seeing how Philippines is doing after COVID's attack?
Okay. I will explain about the social, about the population, about the cases, something like that. Hmm. Well, in Philippines, the cases of COVID-19 virus. Well, I mean, the people that have case of COVID-19 were report about 425 cases. But but hold on. But before the 425 cases in the last 2nd July in 2020, it was it had 294 cases in the 2nd July, and then the second one that just like that I explained, it has 425 the next cases, and then the Department of Health also recorded 44 deaths. So that was yeah, and it increased about 48 in above 48 cases, and then meanwhile the recoveries were up by 909, means it will be total of 2 million cases, and the Department of Health reported rate of 2.1% in the positive test. Sorry, the 22.1%. I mean, of the positive test out of above 24,000 tests, and then the last and finally the last one, the positive case were added confirmed case only after this process. So so the point is, it has it has 2 million people where have the COVID-19 cases. I think that's all.
All right. Thank you for that, Zahran. Yeah, I can really see how Philippines actually did go through a surge of COVID-19 cases during the month of August within this year. And yeah, it is pretty sad to see that, but it's also good to see how Philippines will recover later on, which I will hear from you later on. Hussein, how about you? How's your country doing? How's Pakistan doing?
Okay, in Pakistan, the International Monetary Fund or IMF had expressed satisfaction over the country's utilization of COVID-19 fund after an audit report of the originally produced supplies related to the disease was set with it. Last year, the last international financial institution provided 1.4 billion to Islamabad, Pakistan, to meet its balancing of payment requirements stemming for the coronavirus outbreak. Though it also required the government to conduct an ex-post audit of its utilization. The ministry published the audit report on its website on Friday to fulfill an IMF condition, and making the local media say some 40 billion rupees of irregularities had been found in the COVID-19 budget. Responding to the claim, the ministry said the Auditor General of Pakistan had discussed the report in detail with the IMF in June and during the recently concluded sixth review for a multi-billion dollar bailout package. And the IMF was fully satisfied that there was no case of fraud and embezzlement. Instead, in a statement, the ministry informed a majority of paragraphs and observations included in the report related to procedural shortcomings due to emergency procurements. The IMF was further informed that division or organization there have noted those shortcomings and taken remedial measures. It added the ministry admitted it had published the report on the website as a prior action under the recently completed sixth review of the IMF extended fund facility. It said the report had already been presented to Parliament and was therefore in public knowledge. The government strongly believes in and is committed to transparency and accountability. It continued according to COVID-19 cases in Pakistan until now.
All right, thank you for that, Hussein. It really is interesting to see how the IMF also plays into the role of Pakistan and their situation. Well, when we're talking about Indonesia's case, in terms of economics, we did go through a recession back in the second and third quarter of 2020 when we had consecutive contractions within the GDP growth. And we entered a recession for more or less two quarters, excuse me, 2 quarters, excluding, of course, quarter two and quarter three of 2020. However, it did rose later on, which I will explain in the third point of the question. However, in second quarter of 2020, we did consider a contraction of 3.49%. Then in the third quarter, we did have a 5.32% contraction in GDP. The social field wasn't really happy with how our president, Joko Widodo, actually had a dilemma on the health or economy of Indonesia during at the time when COVID struck in. However, it is really understandable why this dilemma was actually in Jokowi's head at the time, because without a strong economy, we could not, of course, afford the terms and the things that we needed to do in order for our health system and the health of Indonesia as a whole to be actually lifted up. And I also understand why his dilemma on the health side is because without the health of the people of Indonesia, the economy cannot, of course, roll down. We did went into lockdown a bit later, which did cause some, I guess you can say, shock to the people of Indonesia because a lot of schools went online, a lot of workplaces went online, and it was really tiring and depressing for these people since there's no social interactions. And because of the late lockdowns, we had a great increase with cases of COVID-19. It did, however, grow slowly back in 2020, just having 20 or 30 cases per day within the country, and overall just having over 100. However, in 2021, it grew greatly and skyrocketed with a topping 56,000 daily cases back in July of 2021. That's how COVID affected Indonesia overall, but we'll get to how it did recover later on. Moving on to the second question. How was the vaccine distribution within your countries? This is a very important question because vaccines is one of the main tools that will, of course, help each of our countries and the entire world as a whole to actually get back up from the effects of COVID-19. So I'm really curious how these countries within the continent of Asia, or Southeast Asia to be more precise, handled the COVID-19 vaccine distribution. Let's start with Tono again, if you don't mind.
All right. So regarding to the vaccine distribution, Brunei Darussalam has received the first of a series of COVID-19 vaccine doses shipped via the COVAX facility. This is a historic step in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic and in ensuring the safety of the people in Brunei Darussalam. The delivery is part of a wave of arrivals that will continue over the coming months. Brunei is reporting 61 new infections on average each day. 23% of the peak, the highest daily average reported on October 17. In Brunei, there have been around 15,058 infections and 1996 coronavirus-related deaths reported in the country since the pandemic started. Brunei has administered at least 748,088 doses of COVID vaccine so far. And assuming every person needs 2 doses, that's enough to have vaccinated about 86.3% of the country's population.
All right, thank you for that, Ton. That's really great to see how the vaccine distribution in Brunei is actually going quite well. Zarhan, how about you? How's the Philippines doing?
uh, the Philippines will buy 20 millions of the vaccine that developed by the Pfizer and BioNTech, and also it's to fully inoculate more than 80% of population by the within the next year. It is 2022. So I mean, so they will buy 20 million vaccine for them. So like uh, for the for all people in Philippines, so they will protect from the virus. I think that's all.
That's good. That's really good. That's really good. Seeing how the Philippines is actually going forward with that. Hussein, how about you? How's Pakistan doing with the vaccine distribution?
At least, or the statistic of NCOC, 9 more people succumbed to the virus in the last 24 hours in Pakistan. In total, Pakistan has reported 1,284,000,000 COVID-19 cases and 28,000 deaths, according to the NCOC. During the same period, 172 people recovered from coronavirus, taking the tally for recoveries to 1,002,041. This places the total number of active cases at least at 1,969, of which there is only one critical case. The positivity rate slowed below 1% for the 10 consecutive day at 0.59%. Pakistan is reporting 31 new infection of average each day, and 6% of the peak, the highest daily average reported on June 17. And Pakistan has administered at least 122 doses of COVID vaccine so far, assuming every person needs 2 doses, and that's enough to have vaccinated about 28.2% of the country population. During at least the last week, reported Pakistan averaged about 261 doses administered each day. At that rate, it will take a further 166 days to administer enough doses for another 10% of the population in Pakistan until now.
All right. Thank you, Hussein, for that. It's really interesting to see how, compared to our discussion last week with the countries from South America, these countries in Southeast Asia, they might, I guess you can say, in a comparison, a bit more struggling with the vaccine distribution. But with seeing how Pakistan is actually has a structural data and seeing how in the next 160 days they might be able to actually vaccinate 10% more of the population, that is a very stable and slowly but stable growth of vaccine distribution. And I'm really proud to see that. In Indonesia, just like almost every other country that we've discussed here, we're still kind of far from that herd immunity percentage. 34.5% of Indonesia's population has been fully vaccinated. And in terms of vaccine diplomacy, we actually do have works with the US in terms of Pfizer, of course, Pfizer vaccines, and with China, the Sinovac vaccines. And in the UK, there's also BioNTech vaccines as well from there, and also AstraZeneca vaccines from the UK as well. In a lot of international forums, Indonesia has been really open about equality in health access, which is why we're really trying to get all of our resources to allocate in health services and making sure everyone gets the same amount of privilege when it comes to health access. However, we do have challenges as well, with most of the population somehow reluctant with getting themselves vaccinated. Some people are scared with seeing how there has been cases of people dying after taking the vaccines, and some others are thinking that the vaccines might actually cause more mutations as well. Of course, there are in some cases where these side effects may have happened, but on a more overall general consensus, the people and also the government of Indonesia are trying to socialize better the effects of the vaccine and why it actually can help COVID-19 to be COVID-19 cases to be lessened in Indonesia itself and bring Indonesia to a more stable and more great stance in the world, of course. So it is, yeah, it is very interesting to see, like how I said before, how Southeast Asian countries are doing compared to South American countries. But we are getting there slowly but stably, of course, which is great. Moving on to the third question, of course, and the final point of this conversation and this discussion. How does your country plan to recover from the effects of COVID-19? I'm really looking forward to see how you guys, how your countries actually are trying to recover, whether that be economically, politically, or overall with socially as well. Maybe we can start again with Tono. How does Brunei plan to recover?
So the Singapore government has sent 100,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine to Brunei Darussalam as part of the bilateral cooperation to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. In exchange, Brunei will provide the same quantity of vaccine back to Singapore at a later date. This mutually beneficial arrangement enables both countries to optimize their respective schedules for vaccinating the populations against COVID-19. And also, it is the part of the broader commitment to work together with Singapore in confronting the pandemic between these two countries. So on September 13 this year, a total of 100 doses of Sinopharm also vaccine contributed by the Chinese government to Brunei arrived at Brunei International Airport on Sunday midnight. So since 2020, Brunei and China have extended mutual assistance in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. This is interesting that we can see that Singapore and China have the cooperation with Brunei to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic by distributing the vaccine to have a plan to recover the Brunei Darussalam conditions today. So that's all.
All right, thank you for that, Ton. Really great to see how Brunei is planning to recover. Zarhan, how about Philippines?
Yeah. So this is about the case of social distancing, like the previous of Peru that I explained. Next is in the last week, I guess. Yeah. So the last week when I was explain about Peru, let's say they will planning about the social distancing, like limit as just like as such as limitation of hotel, tourists, and other places. But meanwhile, in the Philippines, they ban of foreign travels, so that the so with the purpose of to prevent the COVID-19 virus spreading of the they prevent the spreading of COVID-19 virus in the Philippines. I think that's all.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's really interesting to see how Philippines has taken that. And in my personal opinion as well, that is an amazing act because seeing how such a simple act like restricting borders. Look at Taiwan, for example. They are one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first country in the world to actually be free from COVID-19, having so less of their cases in the early stages of the pandemic as well. So we can really take that as like an action to take. And it really is great to see how Philippines is actually taking that action. Hussein, how about Pakistan?
Okay, thank you again. On Islamabad, Pakistan, the Health Department of Pakistan Southern Sindh province has made the COVID-19 vaccine booster mandatory for all fully vaccinated citizens amid global concern over the spread of the new Omicron strain of COVID-19. Since health officials have made available booster shots of the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine to prevent the risk of transmission and reinfection. And the booster jab will be offered to people already vaccinated with any of the Chinese vaccines, Sinopharm, Sinovac, and CanSino. And the facility for the free of charge booster jab is currently available at the Dow University of Health Sciences and Jinnah Postgraduate Medical Center in Karachi City, Pakistan. And the discovery of the new variant has alerted health officials around the world as countries are rising to halt air travel. The World Health Organization, or WHO, has declared that the new strain Omicron as a variant of concern, which has an increased risk of reinfection. And the National Command and Operations Center, or NCOC, has asked aviation authorities to ban entry from 7 countries and to devise a mechanism for the screening of passengers traveling from this strait through indirect flights to Pakistan. And Minister Asad Umar, who had the NCOC, has urged Pakistans to get vaccinated soon. Pakistan, a country of 220 million people, has so far administered 122 million doses of the coronavirus vaccines, with nearly 15 millions, I think, Pakistan fully vaccinated, and 80 million have received at least one doses of the vaccine. And the last thing, on Islamabad, Pakistan has logged 176 new COVID-19 infection during at least uh, 24 hours, making it the lowest in more than 1.5 years. Data from the National Command and Operation Center, or NCOC, showed Monday morning, tomorrow, yesterday, the country last time saw a daily case count lower than today's was on April 5, when Pakistan recorded 172 cases. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Said, for the comment. And uh, actually, you know what? Let's actually go to the Omicron issue after. Let me update all of you on the situation in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, our economy actually rose out of the recession in the second quarter of 2021 this year by having a more than 7% increase in GDP growth, which is an amazing act that we are so proud of. We're also working on better distribution and socialization of the vaccines for COVID-19, of course. We're also going to be having more vaccine diplomacies, working with more countries in the European Union and also in the African Union as well. And we're also working on reviving the economy more. Seeing that how we've actually managed to get out of the recession, we believe that our actions forward will be to more reviving the economy as a whole and to supporting our economy so we can be lifted up once again. And also to better regulate the public. And this is actually related to the Omicron variant of the COVID-19 virus that has been going around recently. And seeing how most of our recovery plans are actually already in a better take to tackle that issue as well. Seeing how the Philippines is bordering more restrictions and having Indonesia also having more restrictions as well, preparing for the Omicron virus to, if it were to happen, to actually contract back into our countries, we will be able to actually counter that with more restrictions, thus having less people with the Omicron virus and the probability of it going back into our country as well. So it is great to see how actually most countries in the world are preparing greatly for the and anticipating better for this new variant of the COVID-19 virus. That is all, unfortunately, all the time we have for today. It is also, again, once again, very sad that Julio could not be here to delegate his country. However, it is okay. This discussion has been very fruitful as well, seeing how some countries in the Southeast Asian region is actually developing much more and going better through the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is very great. Once again, I thank you, Zahran, I thank you, Hussein, and thank you also, Tono, for your time and your attendance in this discussion. And thank you to all our viewers as well. Thank you for watching us for the past 3 weeks. We hope you actually learned a thing or two from our discussions, and we hope that you guys will be able to see more of these in the future, hopefully as well. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone who's watching. If you have any comments, please hit them down below in the comments and we'll try our best to answer them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down. Thank you so much everyone for your time. We'll see you next time.